Hi everyone, Sunito, the Chairman and the Group CEO of Crown Group, a property development company that is based in Sydney, building projects across Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland, Los Angeles and Indonesia. Arc by Crown Group is one of those projects that becomes a defining moment in the history of Crown Group. But also beyond that, we push what we've done successfully in the past, but taking the initiative to say, how can we make a global icon, an icon that transcends beyond time and region, an icon that goes beyond the demography of our people.
Hi, I'm Koichi Takada, Principal of Koichi Takada Architects. Arc by Crown Group was an international competition. We were invited to compete among the city of Sydney context. And what was really interesting for us, this process involved a lengthy time and the consideration, and come to look at the brief itself. It's a comprehensive brief, and this needed to have a rejuvenation of this particular area. And while we're respecting the context, we had the ambition to create something new. So in other words, we wanted to have a way of contrasting the old context, juxtaposition the new architectural ideas that could somehow coexist. So the idea of this coexistence is very much perhaps what Sydney is known for, but we want to look forward. And this sort of forward thinking is something that we coincide with the vision of Crown Group, and Iwan, yourself is an architect as well. And if I may say, with the competition, we can take a little bit of risk in creating something that I suppose no one ever seen in this particular culture, in this particular context. And so this was our starting point. When we visited the site, we were struck by a wonderful conservation and heritage area of this particular heart of Sydney. And this heart of Sydney is made of, let's say, very much traditional materialities in brick masonries. As opposed to the other new areas, we start to see the contemporary materialities, glass, metal, of course the concrete, more modern materialities. But this particular part of the site had this sort of, if you like, the forgotten past, the forgotten materiality that in today's architecture we stop using. So we wanted to respect the past, allowing this to sit within the historic context, but the new tower would rise on top, so that this contrasting, if you look from a distance, you would see the, if you like, the future of Sydney, but when you walk at the human pedestrian levels, at the human scale, you would start to appreciate this heritage context. We call it future heritage because it respects the past, but equally talks about the forward thinking in use of traditional materials, but very much a contemporary building. So Iwan, I think the starting point of this building is really about defining a podium. And as a developer, it's quite a generous gesture to open up part of your site and to allow public into the site and experience that podium, while we could have just shut and used just for the private and commercial interests. So this generosity of opening up and creating the laneway is very much heart of this development, as I see it.
Yeah, I think what you've done there is taking the Crown Group way of developing building to the new level where we're now bringing the community together into our place. So instead of a building that often are bounded by boundary and the space of private and publics are separated, this building was carrying through people through the building. But we also took it to an amazing height. I mean, the height of this eight-story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is almost similar to the St. Mary Cathedral's arcade or space there, the Gothic space that they have there. So I think that's quite unique in the history of the city of Sydney itself. What I saw also, Koichi, that's what's amazing, that what you did with the old brickwork, that you bring this element of the old, and then you bring the modern elements within the building, which is very rare, and often modern architects tend to either do the old or really, really modern, and you ignore the past. But what you bring is actually bringing the past and the present and the futuristic architecture into one building. What resulted with that was quite magical.
And so other than the public benefit as a heart of this building, it's about creating a healthy place people can live in the city. And we work really hard on reducing the use of mechanical, such as air conditions, or, and let's say creating this natural ventilation. And we study this, air differential pressure. So what we did was that we created this foyer, atrium, which bring the daylight into the lobby itself. But by way of doing that, it pushes the air from outside in. So while you're in this staying in hotel, it's actually quite refreshing to stay in a hotel that you can open window and you can actually ventilate through means of natural ventilation, and it's quite a pleasant place to live or stay even for a short while right in the middle of the city. And I found it really, amazing that this type of simple principle can turn this modern building into very much a sustainable living. The other thing, Iwan, you remember, the glass lift is almost a contradiction because the glass lift normally is the concrete core.
Yeah, and it's very beautiful.
We actually took it apart and created the glass lift core. The idea of this is to bring the lunchtime, the daylight would penetrate through this, through side link. Essentially, it's like a tunnel, but because of this glass lift, it draws the light and bounces the light into the space. And so, in some way, you would normally design inside with a strong core, structurally speaking, and then you take it to the outside. But this was essentially done outside in.
Yes. Wow.
But as you come inside, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter to bring more daylight in. So that was another element that often people walk through during lunchtime and surprised how much daylight you receive. Yeah, so this brick, we used 300,000 of this brick. And let me say sort of handcrafted because it's built by brick by a great masoner. And so the idea of this brick, although brick tend to look very heavy, something about Arc by Crown Group, because the brick steps out, and if you like, almost cantilevering out. And I remember by regulation, you're allowed to overhang 1/3, but we kept pushing to the tipping point. Okay. So, it works in the unbelievable tension, but the result, you have this very thin, tapered look building facade made of brick that basically look very light. And an idea of this is to, bring more daylight, but equally to create a deeper shadow. So it sort of works from sustainable angles as well.
And a lot of people love what you do for the swimming pool here, Koichi. I never fail to see people surprised and taking their photo camera when they walk into this, what they call them, the ice cave of the pool. I mean, that's an amazing outcome for a very small space, a very constrained space.
Yeah. So if you remember that we had the challenge to split the residential entry point and also the hotel guest entry point to be the separate entry point. We initially wanted to amalgamate so that you get this big lobby, but we had to separate it and we had to quickly find this space, almost like I found in between the car park and the building podium. It's a very narrow space, almost like cave-like space, very dark, low ceiling. So we took this as an opportunity to create something special. So the idea of this sort of lighter materials and create this ice cave, let's say. And you have this body of water. So when you walk in, it's quite calming effect for the hotel guests.
Yes.
But I also hearing that this is the part where most people take photo for Instagramming and becoming a very popular spot. If not the entire building, this is the really place where people come together. And in fact, in this building, there's so many places that allow people to gather and socially interact.
And being able to see through the pool right from the foyer of the hotel, the Sky Suites, was quite amazing. People are surprised with that.
Yeah.
I think what I love about what you guys have done, or you did, Koichi, was more about that you don't just design a building that looks good, but it's contextual, that the design responded to the context of Sydney. So what you see, the language in the pool, was actually a reflection of a Sydney sandstone. What you see a lot, that wavy, organic form, it's a history, a sense of connection or connectivity to what you've created here. The brickwork, people love history. The history brings kind of people connection, and it reaches the heart of the people in Sydney, and that's probably why people continue to take photo, and we have so many influencers wanting to take photo here. We have many photo shoot requests on this one here, and we can only satisfy so many people, without interrupting our residents and our Sky Suites guests. But I thought that was something that you consistently bring into your design approach, the natures into your building in a more modern way. We've been fortunate, I guess we've got a great site that kind of fit in directly into the language of your architecture, but also the shift of the New South Wales as a state wanting to become number one again in the whole Australia, but also about the city itself is pushing on creating new things that are happening and at the scale that we haven't seen for many, many years in the city of Sydney.
Ivan, let's talk about the rooftop. So the rooftop is quite a strategic moment for us when we designed this building during competition. So there's a height limit, of course. But we look at the idea of creating the crown of architecture. So this is essentially an allowance for the architectural roof feature. And with this, we open up a space of the top of the building to residents and then the guests. And it's quite a beautiful space. When you go up there and look around, there's not many buildings that utilize this roofscape in a city. And when you're up there, you start to visually connect with the Sydney Harbour. As you mentioned, we have beautiful harbour city in front of us, and why not utilize this space? It's almost leftover space, but if you bring people up, it creates this really wonderful atmospheres. And I remember we had this sort of opening party, and there was a lot of people on the rooftop, and something really wonderful about bringing people up on the roof. In Sydney, of course, we have a great masterpiece such as Opera House in architecture or Harbour Bridge in engineering masterpiece. And these are the elements in which even children can draw in some way and express. But in today's world and today's modernized urbanization, we've forgotten such a creativities and creating that sort of identity unique to its place. So when you look around our building, essentially we see a lot of boxes after boxes of buildings that are probably built based on more economic model. But what we did together is went beyond just creating the economy in itself, but creating a sort of a legacy, as you mentioned. And again, this is not just for your company and our practice, but it is really about giving back to communities and something that people can be proud of. As you mentioned, I also get the feedback that people want to walk through the brick arcade every morning because this makes them happy before they go to work. And that's a wonderful feedback. And that's something that we are proud of associating with how people are connecting to this building and talking about it, drawing this building and sort of identifying as a part of their lifestyle very much in a city condition.
But I think what we are discovering here, Koichi, was that not only that we're discovering what makes great architecture in the world, great architecture, and it lasted many, many years, decades and hundreds of years. It was the element, not about the technology itself. Of course, the technology that you've put in here with the steel frame and that bracing was unique. But the thing that makes great architecture in the world unique is because the experience does not date. The building material style becomes dated, but the experience in the building through many clever things that you do, the glass leaf, the ice cave. So what you're doing was actually engaging the mind, the heart, and the spirit of human being, and that's what's it's been powerful about a few buildings that you've designed for us and that we've completed to date. And I have seen people walking, Koichi, where they said, "Look, this building makes me happy," and I thought that was amazing. We've completed this building in 2018. Yeah, and a lot of time people talk about building and they say it's your building, but the city and the people who are embracing this building are saying this is our building. It's a very different thing. Like they're no longer saying this is your building, but as you know, many of the buildings that you've designed have now been featured into a lot of the Sydney City Council guideline booklet to show what a great architecture can be.